The first chilling breath of dawn, more a sigh of the dying night than a promise of new day, seeps through the ill-fitting wooden shutters of your small, cold room. It carries with it the damp, earthy smell of the German lands in this 14th century and a palpable sense of dread that has clung to you for weeks, a second skin. You lie on a rough straw pallet, the thin, scratchy blanket doing little to ward off the bone-deep chill. Light, a weak, reluctant gray, struggles to penetrate the grimy panes of a single small window, revealing the stark simplicity of your lodgings, perhaps a shared space with other apprentices, or a solitary chamber near your master, the town's executioner. Before your eyes even open, the thought slams into your consciousness with the force of a physical blow. Today, today is the day. Your heart, a frantic bird trapped in the cage of your ribs, begins its wild, suffocating rhythm. This is not the familiar dull ache of another day assisting your master, carrying the heavy, grim tools of his trade, cleaning the blood-soaked scaffold, enduring the averted gazes and hushed, fearful whispers of the townsfolk. Number today, you are to wield the axe, your first beheading. A wave of icy nausea churns in your stomach. Your palms are already slick with a cold sweat. The fear of failure is a living entity, coiling in your gut, whispering insidious doubts. What if your hands, these clumsy, trembling hands, betray you? What if the blow is not true, not clean? The image of a botched execution, the prolonged agony of the condemned, their horrifying screams, the jeers and outrage of the crowd, and worse, far worse, the cold, contemptuous disappointment in your master's eyes, is a recurring nightmare that has stolen your sleep for nights on end. Can I do this? The question is a raw, silent scream in your mind. Do I possess the iron will, the brutal skill, the chilling detachment this accursed profession demands? A fragile, desperate resolve, born more of terror of the consequences of refusal than of courage, tries to assert itself. You must. There is no other path. The sounds of the town slowly stirring to life, a distant cock crowing its defiant challenge to the lingering darkness, the rumble of an early cart on the cobblestones, the metallic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, filter into your room, each sound an unwelcome intrusion, a reminder that the ordinary world continues, oblivious to the extraordinary horror that awaits you. Perhaps you hear the rhythmic, grating sound of your master, already at his grindstone, sharpening the tools of justice or of death. The silence within your own small chamber is heavy, oppressive, broken only by the frantic thumping of your own heart. The room itself offers no comfort. The air is stale, smelling of old wood, perhaps the faint, lingering scent of fear, your own or that of previous apprentices who have faced this same terrifying dawn. In a shadowed corner, a practice pell, a thick wooden post, stands scarred and battered from countless clumsy, hesitant axe strokes. Your strokes. It seems to mock you now with its silent, wooden indifference. You force yourself to rise, your limbs stiff and heavy as if weighted with lead. A quick, perfunctory splash of icy water from a rough wooden basin onto your face does little to dispel the fog of dread that clings to you. You pull on your coarse, dark work clothes, practical and unremarkable, ensuring they allow for freedom of movement, though every fiber of your being feels constricted, trapped. Your eyes might stray, with a mixture of fascination and revulsion, to the executioner's axe, if it is kept where you can see it, perhaps your master's own fearsome blade, or the one that has been designated for you today. You can almost feel its impossible weight in your hands, the cold, unforgiving bite of its polished steel. Breakfast, if you can even contemplate food, is a trial. A hunk of hard, dark rye bread, perhaps a little thin, watery porridge, or a sliver of coarse cheese. You force down a few mouthfuls, the food tasteless, like ash in your mouth, each swallow an effort against the tight, nauseous knot in your stomach. This is not sustenance. It is merely fuel for the grim ordeal ahead, a grim parody of a morning meal. You eat in silence, the image of the condemned, the block, the gleaming arc of the axe, already burning behind your eyes. The meager, tasteless breakfast sits like a cold stone in your churning stomach. Soon after, your master, a man whose silence is often more terrifying than any bellowed command, summons you with a curt gesture. His eyes, cold and gray as a winter sky, seem to pierce through your carefully constructed facade of composure, noting your certain, the almost imperceptible tremor in your hands that you try so desperately to still. There are no words of comfort, no gentle reassurances, only gruff, practical instructions. Today, there might be other grim tasks before your own ordeal, perhaps a hanging for a common thief, or the branding of a heretic whose life has been spared the ultimate penalty. You assist him, your movements stiff with a mixture of practiced obedience and a sickening, ever present dread that tightens its icy grip around your heart. You carry the heavy, unwieldy tools of your shared trade, the coils of rough, unforgiving rope, the branding irons with their cruel, intricate designs, the heavy executioner's sword or axe that is not yet yours to wield with finality, the coarse sacks for the aftermath, and the solid, blood-stained block. Each item feels like a leaden weight, a tangible piece of the horror that defines your existence, and the even greater horror that awaits you personally. The journey to the scaffold, usually a stark, raised wooden platform in the town square or a designated barren field just outside the walls, is a blur of muted sounds and averted gazes. You try to focus on the mundane, the feel of the rough wooden tools in your grip, the uneven, unforgiving cobblestones beneath your worn leather boots, the chill morning air, heavy with dampness on your face. But your mind is a rebellious, tormented thing, constantly replaying the imagined scene of your own impending trial by ordeal, the swing of the axe, the potential for a hideous, unforgivable mistake. At the execution site, a small, somber crowd has already begun to gather, their faces a disturbing mixture of morbid curiosity, thinly veiled fear, and a grim, almost righteous anticipation. Children, their eyes wide and uncomprehending, cling to their mother's skirts, their innocent gazes somehow more piercing than those of the adults. You feel their stares, a thousand silent pinpricks on your skin, a constant, unwelcome reminder of your status. You are an object of both fascination and revulsion, an apprentice to the town's most feared and shunned figure, a pariah in training. You help your master set up the grim stage. If there's a hanging to be performed first, you check the stoutness of the gallows beam, the unyielding strength of the rope, the smooth, efficient function of the trapdoor, if one is used. You might be tasked with spreading fresh sand or sawdust around the block, a futile attempt to soak up the blood that will inevitably copiously flow. The smell of the damp wood of the scaffold, perhaps still bearing the faint, metallic tang of previous encounters with justice, fills your nostrils, a scent that will forever be associated with fear and finality. Your master works with a practiced, almost detached, brutal efficiency. He might offer a few gruff, technical instructions, his voice low and devoid of any discernible emotion, each word a stone dropped into the well of your anxiety. The angle of the blade, boy. Remember the angle and follow through. No hesitation. Hesitation. The word itself sends a fresh wave of icy nausea through you. He might demonstrate a swing with his own heavy axe, the polished steel blade whistling through the air with terrifying, lethal precision, cleaving a practice log with a single, clean, effortless stroke. You watch, your mouth dry, your throat tight, trying to commit every minute detail to memory, trying to ignore the cold sweat trickling down your back, the frantic hammering of your heart. The weight of his unspoken expectation, his silent judgment, is heavier, more crushing than any physical burden. You see the tools of the trade laid out with a chilling neatness, gleaming or dully stained, each with its own grim, specific purpose. The scarred, weathered surface of the execution block seems to stare back at you, a silent, knowing witness to countless last breaths. The murmur of the growing crowd becomes a dull, oppressive roar in your ears. You hear snatches of conversation, of hushed speculation, of harsh condemnation for the wretch, or wretches, who are to meet their end today, one of them at your own trembling, inadequate hands. Your hands, these clumsy, sweating hands. You try to recall your master's lessons, the endless, grueling hours of practice on the pell, the feel of the axe in your grip, the imagined resistance of flesh and bone. But it all feels distant, unreal, like a half forgotten, terrifying dream. The stark, brutal reality of taking a human life, of the warm spray of blood, the terrible finality of it, is a yawning black abyss opening up before you. You might be tasked with fetching the condemned from the nearby jail or a makeshift holding cell. The guards, their faces impassive or openly contemptuous, unlock the heavy, creaking door, and the prisoner is brought forth, perhaps pale and trembling uncontrollably, perhaps muttering desperate prayers, perhaps walking with a chilling, defiant calm, or perhaps already broken, a hollow eyed shell of a human being. Their eyes, if they meet yours, might hold a universe of terror, of pleading, of bitter accusation, or perhaps just a vast, empty despair. You try to remain impassive, to show no flicker of emotion, but inside, your carefully constructed walls of detachment are beginning to crumble, to crack under the unbearable pressure. The smell of fear emanating from the condemned, a sour, animalistic scent, is almost palpable, a suffocating miasma. As the appointed hour approaches, the tension in the air becomes a tangible thing, thick and almost unbreathable. The crowd presses closer, their faces a blur of indistinct, expectant features. The local magistrate, or perhaps a stern faced church official, might step forward onto the scaffold and begin to read the sentence, his voice droning on, the formal, legalistic words lost in the roaring of your own blood in your ears. Your master, his expression unreadable, gives you a curt, almost imperceptible nod. It is time. Your time. He might place the executioner's axe, your axe for this one terrible life altering moment, into your sweating, unready palms. It feels impossibly heavy, cold, an alien, malevolent thing. Your legs feel like lead, your vision narrows, tunneling, focusing with a horrifying clarity only on the condemned, the block, and the terrifying, gleaming, hungry edge of the blade. The fear of failure, the soul shattering fear of causing a botched, agonizing, unforgivable death, is a suffocating presence, more terrifying even than the act itself. One clean stroke, you tell yourself, the words a desperate, silent, hopeless prayer. God help me, just one clean stroke. The world narrows to a terrifying, suffocating pinpoint of focus. The condemned, the scarred wood of the block, the hungry, gleaming edge of the axe, clutched in your trembling, sweat slicked hands. The roar of the assembled crowd fades to a distant, muffled hum, their faces a shifting, indistinct blur beyond the stark reality of the scaffold. Your master's stern, unblinking gaze is a physical weight on your shoulder, his unspoken command, do it right, boy, and do it now, a silent, screaming imperative in your ears. The prisoner, perhaps a man convicted of theft, or a woman accused of some lesser heresy, is forced to their knees, their neck bared, starkly white and vulnerable against the dark wood. You see the pulse throbbing there, a fragile, desperate rhythm of life that you are about to extinguish. Their eyes, if you dare to meet them, might be wide with a primal, animal terror, squeezed shut in a silent, desperate prayer, or perhaps fixed on you with a chilling, accusatory stare that will pierce your soul. You try to block it all out, to become a machine, an unfeeling extension of the cold, indifferent steel you hold. You raise the axe. It feels impossibly heavy, an unmanageable alien weight. Your arms shake, not with the strain of the metal, but with the crushing burden of what you are about to do. Your muscles scream in protest, not from exertion, but from sheer, unadulterated terror. You remember your master's oft repeated instructions, drilled into you through countless hours of practice on the inanimate Pell. The precise angle of the blade, the necessary unwavering force, the crucial follow through. One clean stroke, one clean stroke. The words are a desperate, silent mantra, a fragile shield against the rising, suffocating tide of panic. You try to take a deep, steadying breath, but your lungs feel constricted, your throat tight and dry. Time stretches, distorts, becomes an elastic, unbearable thing. This single, horrifying moment, this terrible precipice between life and death, feels like an eternity. You can feel the collective gaze of the crowd, a thousand unseen eyes boring into you, waiting, judging. You can almost hear their unspoken thoughts. Will he falter? Will he botch it? Will he faint like a green boy? And then, with a guttural cry you barely recognize as your own, or perhaps in a terrifying, ringing silence, you swing. The axe descends, but your aim is off. Your nerve fails you at the last crucial second. It strikes not cleanly, not decisively, but with a sickening, glancing blow, perhaps hitting bone, perhaps only partially severing the neck. A horrifying, guttural scream, a sound of unimaginable agony, tears from the victim's throat, a sound that will echo in the darkest recesses of your nightmares for the rest of your miserable days. Blood gushes, a horrifying, uncontrolled torrent. But the head is not severed, the crowd gasps, a collective intake of horrified breath, then erupts in a cacophony of outrage, disgust, and perhaps even angry, jeering shouts directed at you. Butcher, incompetent fool, end his suffering, you clumsy oaf. Panic, cold and absolute, seizes you, paralyzing your limbs, clouding your judgment. Your master's face is a mask of thunderous fury and unconcealed contempt. He might shove you aside with a brutal curse, seizing another axe or sword himself to finish the gruesome, botched task with swift, brutal efficiency, his every movement a silent, damning indictment of your catastrophic failure. Or even worse, in a display of cruel pedagogy, he might force you to continue, to deliver another blow, and then another, amidst the victim's agonized, blood choked screams and the crowd's rising, bloodthirsty fury. Each subsequent swing is a fresh wave of horror, of self loathing, of utter despair. The axe feels slippery, unwieldy in your blood soaked, trembling hands. You are no longer an apprentice executioner, a dispenser of the king's justice. You are a clumsy, terrified butcher, inflicting unspeakable, prolonged, unforgivable torment. The smell of blood is overwhelming, suffocating, mixed with the sharp, acrid stench of fear, yours and the victim's. The sounds, the victim's horrifying, gurgling screams, the crowd's furious jeers, your master's barked, furious commands, are a deafening, disorienting, hellish roar. You might feel a wave of violent nausea, the desperate urge to vomit, to flee, to simply collapse, but you are trapped, a central, unwilling performer in a grotesque, horrifying public play of your own disastrous making. Regardless of how the execution unfolds, whether with a grim, relative efficiency or a horrifying, prolonged butchery, the immediate aftermath is a blur of shock, horror, and a profound, soul altering trauma. You are an instrument of death, your hands irrevocably stained, your soul forever scarred. The stark, brutal reality of what you have done or failed to do cleanly crashes down upon you with a devastating, crushing weight. This is your initiation, your first true taste of the grim, unforgiving reality of your chosen, or perhaps fated, profession. And it is a taste that will linger, bitter and indelible, for a long, long, tormented time. The bloody, brutal work of the afternoon is finally, irrevocably done. The scaffolds, now perhaps less crowded, but still bearing the gruesome stains of justice delivered, stand stark and empty against the fading, indifferent light. Whether your first execution was a grimly efficient act or a horrifying, prolonged butchery, the immediate aftermath is a disorienting blur of roaring silence in your ears and the acrid, coppery stench of blood that seems to have seeped into your very pores. You helped your master, or perhaps were forced under his cold, contemptuous gaze, to clear away the gruesome remnants, the lifeless body, or what was left of it, carted off with a grim, practiced efficiency by lesser functionaries or by your own trembling hands. You meticulously, almost obsessively, cleaned the axe, your axe now christened in blood, wiping away every visible trace of gore from the polished steel, though you know with a sickening certainty that the stains on your soul, the images seared into your mind, will not be so easily erased. The metallic tang of it, however, seems to cling to your hands, to your clothes, a phantom scent that follows you, a constant, nauseating reminder. Your master might have offered a curt, dismissive word, perhaps a grudging, almost imperceptible acknowledgement if the execution was, against all odds, clean, or a scathing, contemptuous remark, heavy with unspoken disgust, if it was botched. His pronouncements either way offer little comfort, only deepening the chill that has settled in your bones. You return to your small, dim room, the silence within its four oppressive walls, a stark, unwelcome contrast to the roar of the crowd and the terrible, unforgettable sounds of the execution. If there is an evening meal, you have little stomach for it, perhaps none at all. The images of the day, the condemned's face, their eyes wide with terror or dull with resignation, the sickening arc of the axe, the crimson spray of lifeblood, replay themselves with horrifying, relentless clarity, a grotesque, unending torment. Food, if you attempt to eat it, tastes like ash and bile in your mouth. You might sit with your master, if that is the grim custom, the silence between you thick and heavy with unspoken things, with judgment, with the shared terrible knowledge of your trade. Or more likely, you retreat to the dubious solitude of your own rough palate, seeking an escape, a moment of peace that stubbornly refuses to come. There is no leisure, no gentle distraction from the day's horrors. Your small room, usually a simple, unremarkable space, now feels like a cage, the shadows in the corners seeming to writhe and twist with unspoken accusations, with the ghosts of your first kill. The darkness presses in, heavy and suffocating, alive with your fears. You might try to busy yourself, perhaps pointlessly rearranging your meager, pathetic belongings, or staring blankly, unseeingly at the rough wooden walls. But there is no escaping the images, the sounds, the smells, seared into your memory. If ale is available, you might drink deeply, desperately seeking the temporary blessed oblivion it offers, though you know from past bitter experience that it often only fuels the intensity of the nightmares to come, making the darkness even more terrifying. As true night descends, an absolute crushing loneliness envelops you. You lie on your rough straw pallet, the thin, scratchy blanket offering little warmth against the chill that seems to emanate not from the damp night air, but from within your own bones, from the very core of your being. Sleep is a distant, mocking promise, a shore you cannot reach. Your body is a wreck of profound exhaustion, every muscle aching, not just from the physical exertion of wielding the heavy, unforgiving axe, but from the bone deep, soul shattering tension that has gripped you relentlessly all day. Your hands, those hands that took a life, might still tremble, a betraying, uncontrollable tremor you cannot still. A wave of violent nausea might wash over you, the memory of the blood, the smell, the sheer visceral horror of it all, too vivid, so too real, too close. Your mind is a relentless, merciless tormentor. The condemned's face, their eyes, were they filled with terror, defiance, a heartbreaking, silent resignation, swims before you in the oppressive darkness. If the execution was clean, there is still the crushing, undeniable weight of what you have done, the life you have irrevocably taken. If it was botched, O merciful God, if it was botched, the self loathing is a consuming, unquenchable fire. Their screams, if there were screams, echo in your ears, a soundtrack to your damnation. The shame of your incompetence, the horrifying, visceral knowledge of the prolonged, unspeakable agony you inflicted, is an unbearable, crushing burden. I made them suffer more than necessary. I failed. I am a butcher, not an executioner. The thought is a fresh stab of guilt, a twist of the knife in your already wounded soul. Am I truly suited for this accursed life? The question, a venomous, insidious whisper, coils in the darkness of your mind. Can I endure this, day after day, execution after execution? What is the price of this justice I am learning to dispense with such brutal finality? There are no easy answers, only a gnawing, terrifying uncertainty and a profound, soul-shattering weariness that settles deep within your bones. Hope if any fragile sliver of it remains, is a pale, flickering candle in the vast, encroaching darkness of your despair. Perhaps it is the simple, desperate hope for a dreamless sleep, a few precious hours of oblivion before the horrors of memory return with the unwelcome dawn. Or maybe a fainter, more desperate, almost pathetic hope that the next time, if there is a next time, you will be better, steadier, more efficient. Though the very thought of next time fills you with a fresh, cold wave of dread, a sickening lurch in your stomach. Sleep, when it finally, fitfully, mercifully comes, is not a refuge, but another shadowy stage for the day's horrors. You toss and turn, pursued by blood soaked images, by screams that echo in the silence, by the accusing, unblinking eyes of the dead. The weight of the axe is still in your hands, the sickening, unforgettable thud still reverberating in your soul. This is your life now, the grim, unforgiving life of an executioner's apprentice. And the night, you are beginning to understand with a chilling certainty, offers no true escape, no lasting peace.